The Travis Bazzana hype train is full steam ahead. Let the speculation carry you into the not too distant future.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I want to thank you to all of our everydayers. I saw Everydayer Siege with me is back in the comments. I know he was traveling, so I want to thank all of you. For those who are new to the show today, or this might be your first podcast, with all the excitement of the draft, we thank you for joining us. I am Jeff Ellis, one of your co-hosts here. I was one of the original Locked On MLB co-hosts. Before that, I was a national draft and prospect analyst at Scouting 24/7. And before that, I was your fourth favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has or will exist.
Oh, you moved up to fourth from 578. Well, that's good to hear.
What I want is every day. Now I'm going to try to make it tied to the show. So make a guess in the comments why it's 4 today. I'm going to now make this a bit. Every day, this is a bit. I want to see people in the comments trying to guess why 4.
All right. So why is Jeff the fourth favorite blogger? I'm Justin Ladd, your other co-host. And I have been covering the Guardians minor league farm system since 2007. My first interview in the farm system was Bo Mills, who we're going to, in a roundabout way, probably talk about today.
We had like a 15-minute discussion about him before the show began.
We did. He came up way too many times. We'll talk about why in a little bit. But you might have read me at Guardians Baseball Insider. I was the editor for a little bit, and the News Herald, the Morning Journal. I did a lot of draft coverage. And, of course, this is Locked On Guardians. We do cover the draft. We do cover the minors. We do cover the majors every day. Because we are free every day. We cover your team every day, wherever you get podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can get it. Google shut their podcast machine down, but whatever.
The Himalaya podcast app. When I started, we had to talk about that. I don't think that exists anymore. What is it? I don't even remember what I use.
Pocket Cast.
Pocket Cast. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. Use Pocket
Cast.
I have Pocket
All right.
Cast.
So we know the Guardians had
yeah.
Play it from your pocket so we can get more listens. We know the Guardians had a bad weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit more in segment 3. But first, we want to get into Travis Bazzana because on Friday, he officially signed his deal with the Guardians. And he comes in at, what was it, 8? I had
895, I want to say.
I pulled a Jeff and I closed my tab.
I want to say it was 895. It's
it was under 9.
Bazana.
It was under 9. And
I want to say 895.
Yeah, neither one of us thought it was going to be under 9, truthfully. We both thought it would be, but you kept saying, I think it's less than we think it's going to be. You kept
because
saying
he wanted, and especially go read, read all of Zach's pieces if you have The Athletic, but he talked about in his piece, about a year ago this time, Travis started spending his time researching where he wanted to go. And he wanted to come to Cleveland.
Right.
He wanted to come to Cleveland. He wanted to be here. It's crazy to me that, so I think, I don't know if I want to say the villain, but the easiest team to pick on, and I like their draft overall, is Cincinnati, because there's a clear top 2. Now, we talked about Burns being close, and, maybe we put him in, but
that was a money play.
But it wasn't, because Burns and Condon signed for the same amount.
That's true. Oh, yeah, that's true. You're right.
So it's in the end, they went with Burns, paid him as much. And if you're even if you had to go Condon or Bazana, I'm using the Lion King now, Sapsi Sana, Bazana. Right. That's squat instead of squash banana. I got little kids. We got a Lion King and a Back to the Future reference. We're just flying today. But with Bazana, they saved 300,000 compared to those other 2 guys, and he wanted to come here. He wanted to be a part of this team. He looked at his options. And I know that people are like, well, he would have slid, a lot of people are like, Oakland had a deal with Kurtz. Every team has a deal. I got to stress that enough. Every team in the top 7 or so had a deal in place that they were going to call. But that doesn't mean if a guy slides, it doesn't change the deal. It has. All those deals are handshake agreements. Nothing is outside of the first overall pick. Nothing is in stone until you are calling that pick. So yes, they might have had a deal with Kurtz. And this is where I want to give myself a quick shout out. Pat myself on the back. My way too early mock. Now, I did it at the end of the season, so it wasn't the same draft order, but I did have Kurtz to Oakland and Weatherholt to the Cardinals. So I just want to say I got two picks right in October. So that's the new high for me. I was kind of shocked by that. I also had Cozart and Oki in the first round. So again, going back to that whole idea that Cleveland kind of values the, their board gets kind of set, not completely, but to a degree, they're not going to overweigh 1 year of data. Let's just put it that way. But they got their guy, and honestly, he got where he wanted to go. That's why they save that money, and that money is why you get Mobley. Like, if they don't get that deal done, 10th round is maybe someone less exciting, less interesting, and that money is huge.
Or the Guardians set their price and said, this is what we're paying for the first overall pick. Do you want to be this or do you not? Like, what if that was the price they set all along and said Chase Burns, maybe Charlie Condon, maybe Travis Bazzana, maybe JJ Weatherholt, and they said, this is what we're paying. You want it.
It's an interesting one that almost makes me like 895. That makes me feel like there was a reverse bidding process, like, and it ended at 895. Like, because I do feel like this was their guy. Outside of like 2 weeks.
I agree. It sounds like it.
I had someone in the comments be like, well, you can't say you called this. Like, I'm sorry, from December until outside of the last 2 weeks, I was saying it's, Bazana all day.
Yeah, you had it for 7 months.
Day.
Yeah.
But I let myself get shifted by some information we had, which again, what do I scream every year? Don't listen to the smoke.
So did other people.
Don't listen to the smoke. But there was enough smoke that I let myself get convinced. So it feels like they almost did like okay, he's willing to take this. Are you willing to take this? Are you willing to take this? And then still get their guy. Like, I don't think this was just bidding it down. This was, they got their dude and they got that money savings. And this is the other thing I want to throw out there. He's willing to take less. That, hey, long-term extension is more likely. A, and B, it also shows that money isn't the most important thing. Like, being first overall means a lot to him. It means a lot to Australian baseball. Like, that's part of it. Going to a place he feels comfortable in and he knows is going to use advanced data, that is important to him. These are things that bring additional value when you are a small market like Cleveland.
Yeah, you have to build that infrastructure. And he talked about in his interview about how all the things Cleveland does check boxes in his head. This was an organization that made sense for the kind of person he is. And I know people don't really understand, or maybe it's not explained well enough for people to digest, but like, players do have more control over where they go. They don't have full control like free agency, but they do have a sort of dictation.
Pre-market draft.
Yes, because in the NFL and the NBA, almost always the best player in that draft is going the first overall, and because you don't draft for need and all that kind of stuff. So the organization made sense to him, and he made sense to the organization. So it was the perfect marriage. Like,
and can I throw this out there real quick? I saw a lot of people complaining about like low bonuses. Understand, no player is forced to take a low bonus. You call an agent and say, we only have $5,000 to spend with this pick. Will your player sign? And when the agent talks to the player and they agree and say yes, then the player gets drafted. It's not like they draft the guy and they're like, you get $5,000. It is all agreed. Mm-hmm. And for those guys who get $5,000, honestly, that's their only shot. Like, a lot of these low bonus guys, if we said it's mandatory, you got to pay them the slot at that point, these guys wouldn't even get shots in the minors. Like, these are players
they'd be going to independent leagues. They'd be undrafted.
Yeah, so they're getting a shot. And Joey Wendell was a $10,000 signing. Julian Merriweather was a $10,000 signing. These guys can turn into, Brad Goldberg was a $10,000 signing. These guys can turn into players, but don't act like, I saw a lot of outrage. It's like, the outrage should be when they give someone $10,000 on day 3. That's where you and I have talked about. That's
stupid, because none of that
you can give up to $150,000 there. So like, then you're just being a jerk. But on day 2 of the draft, and a player can say no. Just like, let's say Bazzana decided, oh no, I don't like Cleveland. I don't like the cold. He could have told them, no, I'm not taking that money. And he would slide to a place he wants to go. Like, no one is ever, the only forced one I can remember is Jude Fabian to the Red Sox, where, and you know what happened? He didn't get signed, and it looked bad for that front office that's no longer there.
And they probably don't have a good, whoever was in that front office probably no longer has a good relationship with that agent either. So it's going to be hard to make deals with him.
Well, that's why they got the new guy at the top. They changed the whole thing. So everyone's out. That was the former office then.
Yeah. So Travis Bazzana, this is interesting. There's been a lot of talk here, and just a lot of speculation, but I feel like because there was extra attention paid to the draft this year for Cleveland necessarily, but also I think you even mentioned too online, just there's a lot of comments about the draft. So it really feels like there was more attention paid overall, maybe not just Cleveland. Even though Major League Baseball did a poor job of executing this, which they always do, because this is not the perfect time of year for the draft, truthfully. And they didn't have a lot of players attending the draft in Texas, which stunk. It would have been great for Bazzana to be there, but I think we understand why he wasn't, because he wanted to be in Corvallis with his group, which makes sense. But it just seems like there's a lot more hype here. You and I have covered a lot of prospects. You've been around for a lot more drafts than I have, but it really feels like Bazzana might be the most hyped draft pick in a long time for Cleveland. It's been a very long time since we've seen a guy come with this amount of buzz. And we come back, we're going to talk about why, and we're going to talk about the trade deadline a little bit and how that might play into what Cleveland thinks they can do with Bazzana, maybe as soon as this year.
First, though, let's go over and check out our good friends at Prize Picks. So I'm going to look at today's board, which is unfortunately moving very slowly for me, but there we go. Can tell that. How do you like? Tomorrow is a free play. So for those who don't know, this is something they do on early in the week where they give you one for free. And the current one is LeBron James versus SRB, Serbia maybe, and it's more or less on half a point. Do you think the LeBron James is going to have more or less than half a point? I think the answer is more. I don't think that. So they're going to do this all summer. These giveaways essentially. So that is one there that is fun to check out. And then let's go. Cleveland's got a hard matchup tomorrow. Let's see if we got anyone for total bases versus Scooble. We do not. Let's see if we get a hitter fantasy score versus Tariq Scooble. Steven Kwan at a 6. Bet the under. Jose at a 6.5. Take the under. Everyone on Cleveland, go under versus Tariq Scooble. Head over to Prize Picks for yourself. I just gave you 3 wins. There you go. You got to pick more or less. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for a winning championship is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Check out the Locked On Sports Today feed over on YouTube or your Amazon Fire TV app. Don't worry about the screaming shows that are out there, even though some of the screamers have been fired. Maybe there's a reason for that. Listen to shows from hosts that know your team the best. They're local. They know your teams. They cover them every day because that's what we do here at Locked On.
They don't come up with terrible, dumb trades that make no sense.
Yes. They don't come up with terrible, dumb trades. They know your team.
They don't bring up false rumors based off of nothing.
So check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a 24/7 feed on YouTube, Amazon Fire TV, apps, Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. And it seems like we are the Travis Bazzana podcast at this point, but there's a reason for that. Because I can't remember. Maybe it's just he's good. He's good. Let's just leave it at that. All right, that was today's show. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good. See what I mean? Local opinions. They know your team the best. But no, like you and I have been around. Okay, Jeff, you can come back now. We've been around a lot of prospects. Like we were talking off the air, like, okay, who have been the most hype prospects in the system since you and I have been coming around? Like I went back and I was thinking about the 80s before I was alive, and I was like, there were people talking a lot about like Alex Cole, and then there was buzz around like
I don't know if he was like hyped as much as he had the fun goggles. Bell was an up and down trouble player. It's like I remember Mark Lewis because Mark Lewis was was a number 2 overall pick. I remember Scott Sanderson, though I think he had pitched in the big leagues, and Jack Armstrong, who I believe had been an all-star. But those are the guys you got for Greg Swindell back in the day. Another number 2 overall pick. So it was a lot of like the prospect you got in trades, and then in terms of the draft, I can remember hype with Tim Drew because we didn't have much to talk about in the minors at the time because it was Famous Brothers. But the biggest, and then Lindor is the biggest hype of a prospect, but that was upper minors, not on draft day. The biggest hype guys, honestly, I feel like, and again, correct me if you can think of someone if you disagree, but and there was a small degree with Lindor because that was a period where they were not going prep at all, and then they took him. They had been college, and it had been bad. Clint Frazier, because he was the big right-handed power hitter, and they hadn't really. Listen, everyone who's been complaining about Condon, I've been hearing the complaints about needing right-handed power since they wrote up Clint Frazier in 2013. It's been a decade. And I'll go back to you just need hitters, good hitters hit.
Yeah.
But the other side is like Brady Aiken was super excited. Now, Brady Aiken, I thought was the slam dunk first overall pick in his draft year. I thought he was the next Clayton Kershaw. I didn't get to see his medicals. His medicals were terrifying by all reports, just very thin ligaments and things like that. And it was a huge bust. But when they took Brady Aiken, they had not taken a prep arm with their top selection, a non-supplemental pick since Adam Miller was a supplemental pick in 2013. So I believe it was like Dan Denham in 2001. Like it had been over a decade. So he was a big name, and people were the most hype I have seen. And I've been, my first official draft was 2008, the Andrew White, Alex White, Alex White, yeah, from UNC. Third highest rated prospect on my board was Mike Trout, fourth, because I had White and Tim Wheeler ahead of him. It's okay. I was there's a name from the past, but I liked Richie something or other Richie Schaefer, right? He ended up playing AAA with them. He was the number one player on my board.
Columbus Clipper.
So. Yeah, it's the hype, as it should. It's a first overall pick. One of the things is all these people getting upset about the draft and this whole slotting system. It's like, you guys just don't understand how the draft works, and that's fine. You're learning, but we have more people paying attention in general than ever, and the hype is real. They've never picked first overall. They've not had a top 10 pick since Clint Frazier, right? Isn't he the last time they had a top 10 pick?
Yeah, they picked him 5th overall. It was the high. Yeah. That's the highest they picked until last week.
Yeah. And I mean, that
definitely plays into it. I just think that,
and this was a year of production that was like they were playing on easy in college baseball. Like the cheaterific levels were high by all accounts and reports. Like it was bad, but it led to huge production and led to monumental years. So that piled on more hype. So I think 100% this is their most hype draft pick. To me, number 2 and 3, and people can compare, contrast, or tell me I'm wrong, was Aiken and Frazier.
I would disagree. I do think it was Lindor. I think, okay,
Lindor once you get up to AAA. Like when he got drafted, there were a lot of people were not happy because they thought, he's everything people are saying about Bazzana was said about Lindor when he was drafted. Like, he doesn't have the big time power. He's not, he's going to be average power, average bat plus defense. Like there was a lot of complaints about him at the time. I mean, he was a top player there for sure, but I will say when he was drafted, I would disagree. But once he got to AAA, absolutely, he's the biggest hype prospect of my life at the AAA level.
I feel like he was a lot more just being around. I was around Lake County a lot when Lindor was there. I did interviews with him and was there when Jose Ramirez got there, and I just feel like the buzz did start for back at the time Lake County was low A, now they're high A, but the buzz did start for Lindor there. I think it was double A.
I mean, there was buzz.
Double A when the hype started to build for him. And then, I would agree with you. It was probably Clint Frazier and then Brady Aiken for sure. Were in that same ilk. And here's why we're talking about this, because obviously Bazana is the first overall pick. And the last time they picked this high have been normally high schoolers. And I think the buzz here, it has a lot to do with being the first overall pick and how good he is. Obviously, he's a good player. You can't pick a player that's not worthy of number 1 overall, and he was. But I think it's his proximity to the big leagues that helps here. Like when you, and this ties into him being here for 4 days over the weekend, and this is why I think this is interesting too, because Frazier and Lindor, when you took those guys, and Aiken too, because Aiken was coming off Tommy John, and he was a high schooler, you knew those guys were way further away because A, they were high school kids, and B, Aiken had Tommy John. I feel like the hype is bigger than Bazana. I think he is the most hyped Guardians Cleveland prospect in baseball of all time. I mean, obviously I have reference to the 80s and all that stuff because I wasn't alive, and I've tried to catch up over the years on that stuff. And I don't think prospects weren't as talked about at the time as they are now. I guess social media helps, but I think the proximity to the big leagues plays in here because we know, you're seeing Paul Skeens in an All-Star game less than a year after he was drafted. Or a year after he was drafted. You're seeing a lot of guys make this move a lot fast. That doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, but you are seeing that a little bit to an extent. And I think we all think Bazana is a little bit closer. And in that same vein, I'm really interested in this because we've seen guys in the past, like the Clint Fraziers, the Francisco Lindors, Bradley Zimmer, whoever, and he was a college kid. These guys, they sign their contracts, they come to Cleveland, they shake hands with whoever's on the major league roster, they take BP or they do something or they throw a bullpen, whatever. And then they kind of go and they head out and they start their journey. Travis Bazzana has been here since Thursday, right? He got here Thursday or Friday. And he's here all weekend, and he's going to be here all week. He's going to, go to Lake County later in the week. I think they're in Great Lakes. So he might go to Michigan later in the week, and he'll make his home debut the following Tuesday on trade deadline day, which is going to be wild, by the way. Most guys, most prospects, like I said, they spend 24 hours here. They sign their contract, they take their BP, they throw their bullpen, they play catch, they go on their way. Bazana has been here for 3 days. He's, going to be in town for a little bit longer. I think that's really interesting. And I say this because, and maybe somebody else has more insight into this because, we don't have the inner workings of all this too, but this is just from what we've paid attention to over the years. I think it's interesting that he has spent a lot of time. He's going to spend roughly a week here before he heads out to his first minor league assignment. It's more than usual. It seems like more than usual. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, this means he's going to be up this year, so guarantee it. But I do think it lends itself to the possibility that they want to get him acclimated to the surroundings, the team, the people here. Regardless, they would do that. But I think it lends an interesting possibility that get him acclimated as much as you can while you have time, just in case there's a possibility he's up in September. And I think the trade deadline plays into that too. If you see, and I didn't get here on my own, by the way, I had a little help to get here. So a listener of ours, I know he's listening and he knows who he is, pointed out, like, if Cleveland goes heavy on the trade deadline, they trade in these middle infielders they've needed to do for so long, could it clear space for Bazana? I think there's a low percentage chance of it, but I don't think you can totally rule it out. And I think this week has been interesting to show that.
I mean, on this very show, last month, I talked about the fact that I thought he could get some majors this year. Like, the bat is advanced enough. So I think it's possible. I definitely think it is possible. And it's one of those things we could see because he's got an advanced approach, unlike one of the most advanced approaches we've ever seen. And you put him, he's going to high A like we said he would. And, he'll go. And then
it might be a week.
It might be a week. It could be 2 weeks. It's all,
it depends on what he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be shocked if he's here in September, especially because then it's the Wyatt Langford of it, right? Get him up, get experience. Almost on the
World Series roster.
Get him up, get him experience, Texas. Get the hype up, and then you might get a bonus first rounder if he wins Rookie of the Year in a year, which is also a possibility.
Yeah, and I think Cleveland would appreciate that, knowing the fact they're going to pick later in the draft next year. All right, well, speaking of rumors, it is rumor season. We'll talk about that a little bit and what to be aware of. We'll talk about some minor league pitchers, minor league moves, and we'll get into this offense and if the Guardians are hitting a wall, if it's young players, if this lineup needs fixed, what they need to do. We'll get into all of that coming up. And if Travis Bazana is part of that calculus. Check out our good friends over at FanDuel. Love sports thing, never want them to stop, but there's not a whole lot of playoffs going around. But you do have NFL training camp coming up. You've got the Olympics. You've got Team USA, who barely beat Senegal the other day.
South Sudan,
James,
right?
They actually won. It was Sudan. Sorry, not Senegal. Sudan, yes. Almost a miracle win. So maybe that would have been a rough bet for somebody to put a bet on that. But you got all those games coming up this summer. You got NFL training camp. You're going to have college coming up as well. All that fun stuff on FanDuel. I was just checking on FanDuel. The Guardians are still minus 155 to win the Central. So despite their recent hard times on offense, they are still favored to win the Central. And that might have a lot to do with money being pushed that way. We'll see. 4-2 for Monday's game facing Tariq Skubal. This offense has been in a rut lately. I would be very wary about taking any Guardians offensively. I would definitely be picking over. I don't know what the over on strikeouts for Skubal because they don't strike out a lot, but I would be very wary about any Guardians offensively against Tariq Skubal. We'll find out. But all summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone all summer long. So if you want to bet on the Guardians, you want to bet on the Olympics, you want to get some money down on NFL or college football, head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And make sure you're checking out the Guardians broadcast on your SiriusXM app on Monday at 6:40. Just search Guardians on the app to tune in. All right, Jeff. So just real quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we already got backed up with all the Bazzana talk, rightfully so. But, we're seeing some reporters out there who are talking about, well, so-and-so. Like there was one reporter the other day who was like, so-and-so hasn't been active in trade talks, but they could because they have in the past. And you tweeted, well, I normally eat lunch around this time, but I haven't. So stay tuned. I might eat lunch.
Yes.
Just, again, it's the same. Yeah, it's just
in the same
that time of year.
Like, the Reds, after a rough weekend, could be selling their rentals. And then they mentioned Nick Martinez, who's not a rental.
So
So
if they want to trade Nick Martinez, great fit for Cleveland. I'm all in.
Well, if they eat some salary, that's an expensive guy for. But you can listen to Friday shows. We talked about him some more there. But the point is like, or there was a hot rumor, Joey Cantillo pulled from a game. I remember seeing people getting worried, and then he pitched 5 innings in that game. It's just he didn't start the first inning.
And CJ Kafis hasn't played for 2 days, and that's more of a sign of there's some injury going on because.
Yeah.
Okay, so one, it's July 22nd when you're listening to this. The trade deadline is 8 days away. There's a lot of teams that have not decided whether they're buyers or sellers. Now we've talked about whether or not it's going to take to the last 48 hours until teams decide they're buyers or sellers. They're going to see how they do this week. They're going to decide how close they are, whether they should hold, buy, or sell. So it is way, way too early for guys to be pulled from games or pulled from a start, I think, for the most part. We'll see later in the week. But right now, I think it's too early for guys to be pulled from a lineup to say, oh, it could be a trade. 2 days in a row, to me, definitely indicates that there's an injury going on there. I don't know for sure. He could be ill, whatever. But he was not in the original lineup on Saturday. So, just be careful about running away with stuff. Like, if you want to have fun with it and speculate away to your heart's content, be my guest. I'm just saying, like, before you draw any conclusions, I would say just be careful about where you go for sourcing. And, it's silly season. So you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff out there about that stuff. Speaking of Joey Cantillo, Jeff, so we had a number of interesting outings over the weekend. One of them was not Logan Allen, which we'll talk about. So Matt Boyd made his second rehab start on Sunday. He pitched very well. He pitched 4 innings at Akron, 4 hits, a run, 5 strikeouts, up 94. I'd heard from a friend in Arizona that he was about 92, 95, was, looking good as far as you can from Tommy John and facing, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, whatever. I'm not really buying the Matt Boyd thing yet. Like, it's great his velocity is there. It's great he's not walking anybody because control is the last thing to come back from Tommy John usually. So it's great that he seems to be throwing strikes and he's been efficient. But, he's faced 18-year-olds in Arizona. And
he's going to be in Double-A this week, right?
So, yeah. So just be careful. Like, I'm not going to buy the hype. But, again, I think if Matt Boyd ends up being a piece that's helps you in the rotation, it is money found in the laundry. Like, that cannot be your guy. You're like, nope, Matt Boyd is our acquisition. Gavin Williams is our acquisition. The rotation's fixed. Like, that can't be your fix. He is the $20 money or $20 bill you found folding the laundry. And then real quickly, Joey Cantillo, 5 innings on Saturday, even though people thought he was pulled for a trade or whatever. Back-to-back starts, 1 walk over 10 innings. That's good news. And for Cantillo trade speculation too, I don't think Cleveland can trade him unless you're getting like a Garrett Crochet, because this team cannot afford to trade away pitching depth on the 40.
No.
So, and then Sunday, Tristan McKenzie walked 7. He's not an option right now at all. And then Logan Allen hasn't pitched, but Xavier Curry is going to pitch Tuesday. So Logan Allen's going to get one more start in the minors.
Yeah, I'll say, if I did the math correctly, as of recording this, we're at about 210 hours to the deadline, just to put it in those terms. So you can consider it that way. It's one of those things. Cantillo, back-to-back strong starts for him, which is important. They need him. They need something, right? And Spencer Howard, we hardly knew ye. He's a weird pick. Like, he was never spectacular in the minors. He was a relatively high pick who got a lot of hype in a bad system and has now parlayed that into more innings than I expected, honestly, at the big league level. But it was bad every step of the way, and I'm glad Cleveland's like, nope, and moved on from that choice. They moved on from another player. We should probably throw that out there. A lot of people have been asking about the Ethan Hankins of it all, because we talked about him and some knucklehead stuff in the past. All I can say is, by all reports, he was healthy and he was not with any other affiliates for over a month plus. And that's really all you need to know. If a guy is healthy and they're having him sit at home, I don't need to comment more there. DeLauder, has he played in 2 months? Is it now? I mean,
he played Saturday.
it's but his first time in 2 months before that Saturday appearance, right? Wasn't it 2 months? I mean, I can't. I was thinking about like if this team, we don't have the time today, we'll have to get into it tomorrow. Sarah's had an interesting piece with 3 outfielders who he thinks are going to have strong second halves. All 3 of them could be trade candidates. And I was like, well, do you want to add an outfielder if you're feeling good about, Angel Martinez or Stephen Kwan or Freeman? And I was like, I can't trust a Lotter to be up. I can't believe in him until he can show any semblance of health. So for me, I think this team probably does need an outfielder, and we'll get into that later this week. I know we're also going to look forward to this week. People want more prospect talk. We're going to talk about who's had the helium and has been rising high, and whose shoes are made of lead and are fallen far, just in terms of performance. Now, it doesn't always mean anything. A year ago this time, we probably would have been discussing one Angel Martinez for lead boots and sinking to the bottom of the ocean. So, sometimes talent, Bo Naylor as well, but sometimes the helium guy is also, one Tanner Bybee. So there's value on all sides of it. It's a fun discussion, and we know it's something people want.
Yeah, we kind of ran out of time today, unfortunately, because of the Bazzana talk, which hopefully people enjoyed that. But
we've got
we were going to talk about the rookie ball.
Essentially 3 more minutes. We can give people, I think.
All right. So the Guardians, real quickly, the Guardians offense last 30 days. You had the numbers up. I'll just say this: last 30 days for Cleveland, not including Sunday, they're 17th in homers at 27 overall, 97 WRC plus, and they have scored 101 runs, 102 if you want to count Sunday, which puts them at probably 21st in the league, maybe 22nd. So the offense is starting to show some cracks a little bit. And I think the issue here is the thing we really got excited about was like when Naylor and Ramirez or Kwan had a bad night, or when Kwan was out, you had guys in the lower part of the lineup stepping up. Sometimes it was Fry, sometimes it was Rocchio here and there. It was Brennan, it was Freeman. Like, you were having guys step up when the leaders weren't. And then some days those guys weren't contributing. And then you had your stars step up and take charge and to get things done. Well, now you're kind of not getting either, which is the hard part. And you're not getting enough from either end. So the question we have to ask, I think, for Tuesday is, have the Guardians young players, because you're going to have ebbs and flows for, Naylor and Jose and even Kwan. Those guys are your established guys. Jimenez is having a rough year overall offensively. He's always streaky. But to the Guardians, are you seeing a lot of rookie hitters and second-year players hit a wall? Is it just a slump that happens because the Guardians have been shut out 4 times this month already, which is as many as they have all year coming into this month? Or do they simply need a fix and they need outside help? Have they seen enough of certain players where it's time to move on? We're no longer in the mode of, okay, we're still trying to play the young guys, figure things out. Have you seen enough of certain young players where, okay, we're in first place, it's time to go for this, and we need to fix the offense, and it's time to move on from one of these outfielders? We'll talk about that tomorrow, as well as prospect risers, fallers, and who has more trade value going into this week.
Yeah, we got interesting names. We have some interesting debates. It's going to be a fun week. And, the Guardians, yes, they lost to San Diego. We didn't cover it hardly at all. I know people might be upset. Tanner was great. Offense disappeared. Do we need to say more?
Concerns about Gavin Williams.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's only their second home loss all year. Home series loss, I should say. So, let's not.
They're still in first place.
By 5 games.
They're one game out of being the best team in the American League. So yes, people are panicking. Yes, the offense is struggling, but let's see how they rebound. Let's see how this series against Detroit goes.
And like I said, tomorrow we'll talk about how there might be some options in Double A that could be answered just as much as Jess Winker, even though I still want Jess Winker. Go listen to Friday's show again about why he's a perfect fit for this team. But I want to thank you all for listening, rating, and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Make sure you're commenting, liking, thumbs up at 3,019 followers now over here on the YouTube. I don't think that's how you do it, but still, let's keep getting those numbers up. Let's get to 4. Let's get to 5.
Thank you. Shout out to our friend TJ Zuppi, recovering from surgery. Get well soon.
And
friends over the Selby's Godcast.
And then I just clicked the wrong thing here. I lost all my banners. Again, thank you all for supporting us all last week. The numbers were absolutely spectacular. Thank you for being part of the Locked On Guardians team, and go Guardians, go.